Hello, folks, and welcome to another one of those interview things I like to do. Today, we have a very special guest. Big shocker, am I right? But seriously, folks, our guest today is no small potatoes. She's done a number of voice roles in the New York and Los Angeles scenes, a fair few coming out of 4Kids Productions. She's done some live-action work, done hundreds of audiobooks, and is no stranger to podcasting and interviews herself. And when Pokemon's English dub started, she was there at the beginning. And along the way, she provided the voice of one of my favorite Pokemon ever. Yeah, that's right, Wurmple. I mean, discounting the obvious. So, it is an honor and a pleasure to get to speak with Miss Tara Sands.
I'm just going to do the whole interview as Wurmple, if that's okay with you.
Oh, okay, I can decipher this.
Wurmple. Yeah, that would be a weird interview, but it would be funny to about two people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fluent in Poke-Ease, but, yeah, there's a little inside joke there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for, lowering your standards to get to speak with me. I say this to everybody.
Stop it.
So, let's get the customary stuff out of the way. So, I just wanted to know, what inspired you to get into the world of acting, and who are some of your biggest influences, like either past or present?
I feel like a lot of other actors, I didn't have a choice. This is what I wanted to do, and there was nothing else I wanted to do. I wanted to be a performer. I wanted some kind of artistic life. And luckily, I had a supportive family. And when I said, I want to be an actor, they didn't laugh at me, and they helped. I was, voiceover specifically was not on my radar. I just knew I loved performing. I loved becoming other characters. And luckily I'm working because I don't know what else I would have done. I feel bad for people who don't have a focus like that. I meet so many kids who are, floundering and trying to figure it out. So I feel very lucky that I knew at a young age.
But when it comes to, did you see anybody growing up and you were
sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's okay.
I forgot that part of the question.
That's cool.
There were so many people I loved. I was a musical theater kid. I loved Bernadette Peters. I didn't know the names of people on cartoons I was watching, but I loved the Smurfs. I loved Fraggle Rock. But I didn't know their names necessarily. I just knew they were awesome. I loved comedy. Growing up, I still am someone who watches Saturday Night Live every week. People like Kate McKinnon, who I just idolize. It's those people that I really look up to.
Very nice, very nice. I like Bernadette Peters too. I was just listening to her in Animaniacs, and I was like, oh my God, she's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, so talented. She's not working enough.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So, next question. So I know a bunch of voice actors go under different pseudonyms or stage names. Voice actors are interesting because they're some of the only people that you can speak to and say, all right, so-and-so, and then follow it up with, if that is your real name.
Yes,
but
that's true.
Are there any interesting stories behind any pseudonyms that you've used? If you want to go into that.
I guess I should reveal myself. Yeah. So the name changes started... I was still kind of figuring out, because Sands is not even my real last name. So I was always kind of playing around figuring out, what name works. My real last name was very, very hard to spell. So Sands I chose when I was in high school, and then I went with my middle name when I was doing a lot of the 4Kids stuff. So that was Tara Jayne. And then as we did weirder and weirder projects, sometimes we didn't want to use our real names on those.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite was that one day Sam Riegel was directing me. I think it was on, honestly, I don't even know. Maybe it might have been a video game or a weird anime. And he said, hey, Tara, before you go, what name you want to use for this? And I said, what's your mom's name? And he said, Lenore. And I said, great. I am Lenore. And he said,
I have that one written down. Yeah.
Yes, that is why I used that name that day. It was completely spur of the moment. It became a fun game for us. Honestly, too, I probably used pseudonyms when I shouldn't have, because we just thought it was funny. We didn't know that anyone was going to find this stuff or cared to know who we were. It was very arbitrary. So, yes, but Lenore is
There are a couple of others here, too, if I'm right in assuming, Molly Kay or Rita Joseph.
That was the name of my first... Molly Kay was the name of my Cabbage Patch Kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, that's cute.
So I use that as a pseudonym. literally just would just pick them randomly.
Oh, that's good.
So stupid.
I like that.
Oh my God, Molly K. That's funny. Rita Joseph, that is a combination of my parents' middle names.
And there's also Rita Stevens as well. Is that another one?
Oh yeah, that's another one based on my parents' combinations of my parents' names.
Oh, that's crazy. I like
It's
that,
ridiculous.
though. Yeah, like when I spoke to Ollie Wyman, really cool guy, and he told me like his pseudonym, Pete Zarustica. I was like,
that's a good story.
Yeah,
that's a really good story.
Yeah, I remember speaking to him about it, and then what was it? I think on Bulbapedia they posted my interview, and they said this is where Pete Zarustica came from, and I was like,
now
oh
you're
my
a
gosh.
source.
Yeah, I'm a source.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when this will air, but we actually interviewed Ali yesterday. So I just heard that story. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Well, if you get in contact with him again, tell him Malik says hello, because, I thought he was super cool, and I want to speak to him again. But enough about him. Let's get back to you.
Okay, fine. I could talk about Oliver all day. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, we all know you've gone into the stories about how you got into Pokemon and blah, blah, blah. But this leads into something later, well, a little after this question. But what Pokemon do you recall voicing, discounting the obvious ones, of course?
Oh, gosh. So I do have a cheat sheet, finally, because I didn't know. And, like, recently I found out that I was Mudkip, which I did not know.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Dunstan reminded me, and then I listened, and I was like, oh, yeah. What's funny is, like, I know I filled in for a ton of them, but we don't claim those. So, like,
right.
We sort of, it's an unspoken rule that, like, the main person who did it has claim to it. Sometimes that's a little unclear because, like, there's some characters that I know, like Eric Stewart and Michael Hagney played, that, like, they did it pretty often where they would fill in. We believe. Again, this is, like, such an imperfect science.
Yeah.
So my major ones, let me see if I can remember. Let me see if I have my cheat sheet in here. I usually keep it in here. Okay. So the ones I know, so Mudkip, Bulbasaur, Clefairy, Clefable, Furret, Phanpy, Oddish, Smoochum, Teddiursa, Larvitar, Wurmple, and then in recent years, Yamper.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think that's it, but I'm not positive.
That's good. That's good. I also have this little Yamper thing here. I thought it'd be appropriate.
I do love. He's so cute.
I know, right?
Luckily, I got to have, like, speaking lines on the show, because I think I would have been bummed if I only did creatures, since they don't say anything.
That's ironic, because there are people who only have speaking roles, and they're like, I would kill to be a Pokemon.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's always the grass is always greener.
Oh, yeah. Of course. So when bringing up Phanpy, this is very, very interesting, and I'm very glad that I can share this with you, because there's a whole history to, like, Phanpy and how it was voiced and various things like that. So
really,
yeah, allow me to get very nerdy for a bit. But,
no, I love this. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, do tell.
Okay, so you were the first voice of Ash's Phanpy, and then later on, after you left to go to LA, Phanpy came back into Ash's roster a few years later, like around season 8. That was like 2006. And in your absence, it was apparently voiced by Lindsay Warner, who also...
I don't think that's accurate.
You don't think so?
I don't, because I was still there in season 8. I moved in 2005. So I believe that's a typo, like on the internet.
Phanpy. Hey, did you come all that way from the lab by yourself?
Phanpy fan!
Betcha I know why. You want to come with us, don't you?
Phanpy fan!
Well, let me see. Just kidding, of course you can come.
Fan!
Okay, so that episode of season 8 where Phanpy came back, this was like a handful of episodes before the voice switch. These aired in 2006. But
yeah, but we would have recorded, because I moved. It's debatable, but
yeah.
When I asked Darren about it, we were not sure, because I was trying to get all this stuff updated online.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, it's entirely possible I just was away. But from what I know, I finished my work on Pokemon. I moved, and it was coincidental that was the time when the cast was then changed. So
Right.
as far as I know, I finished my roles on Pokemon. Again, if it sounds different, it's probably because maybe I was away, maybe I was working on something and just couldn't get in. But again, it kind of goes back to that rule. If it's like just an episode or two, we sort of have claim to those voices. So I don't know. I think the internet might have gotten that wrong, unless it sounded completely different to you.
It's weird. Like that's why I say like apparently. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
like I'm not sure like apparently it might have been Lindsay Warner because she was credited in there. I don't know, but
I don't think it was. Yeah, and I feel wrong like taking her off of it in case she did one episode and said a few lines. Like in case I don't know her. I don't know if she'd be. I don't think she would care. But in like the terms of the rules of the Pokemon world, and from my memory, I finished my stuff on Pokemon. So it is weird because the internet is so imperfect. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this podcast I'm working on, but part of our goal is correcting these credits.
Absolutely.
Because it's a shame that that they couldn't give us individual credits back then, and I don't know the reasoning behind it. It might have been simply that credit wise it would have taken too much time to do all those individual credits.
Right. So let's see. So let's say hypothetically then that wasn't Lindsay Warner. It was all you. So then there were 7 episodes where Phanpy showed up, and then the voice switch happened after that. And then 1 episode after the voice switch, Phanpy was seen again and used voice clips from the archive. So I'm gonna guess it was you if it wasn't.
Probably not, because if it was after the voice cast switch, I don't believe they had. I don't think they ever used the original cast's voices.
They actually they did.
Maybe for Jigglypuff in the movie, I know, but.
Oh, for quite a few, because seasons 9 and 10 were done at Taj Productions, and for quite a few Pokemon, for quite a few.
If it was KZ or Carter, then they were the only 2 cast members, I believe, who stayed with the show.
Yes.
So those would have remained the same. That is correct. Sorry, I misspoke.
No, that's okay.
I consider them part of the new cast in that regard.
Yeah. But I really do know that there were a few Pokemon during the Taj days when it was recorded at Taj where they had voice, like, I spoke to Michael Hegney a couple years ago, great guy, and there was an episode or two after, in seasons 9 and 10 where Psyduck showed up, and I was like, and you hear the Psyduck voice clips, and you can actually, I pinpoint, it's like, wait, that voice clip is from this episode that Taj did, and this episode.
Because Taj held on to their clips.
They held on to those clips.
It really shouldn't have happened like that, and once it did move from Taj, I don't believe that would have ever happened again.
No.
It's kind of unethical to have used those, honestly, because they wouldn't have paid him for his work then. You know?
Absolutely. So
yeah,
I think so if I'm just going to assume that Phanpy was you all the way through until Phanpy showed up 6 episodes later and was actually voiced by KZ Rogers, and that was the last time we saw Phanpy before it evolved. But
okay. Yeah, so that was part of the new cast, even though KZ was part of the... It is confusing, and for those of you listening who are completely baffled by what we're talking about. So after Season 8 of Pokemon, the Pokemon Company took back the rights to the show, which it had been done by 4Kids Productions. And because the actors had a clause in their contracts saying they could not perform the role for another company, Pokemon could not go after the actors. There were a small handful of actors who did decide who somehow got advanced knowledge that this was happening, whereas the main cast members did not know. So the smaller handful went to 4Kids and said, "Are you going to sue us, basically, if we continue on the show?" And the president of 4Kids said, "No, I'm not going to, pursue legal action, but you're not welcome to work here anymore."
Mm-hmm.
So they did go on with the production, unbeknownst to the other cast members who had no idea that this change was taking place. They may have done the same thing. Unfortunately, nobody gave them a heads up. it'd be a very different conversation now if they had. So it's not a matter of blame or anything. This is just business and how business works. But that is why we are having this conversation about the changing voices and the confusion.
Yeah. And like
I hope that summed it up a little bit.
I think everyone will get that. And if there's anything in here that you didn't want me to disclose or say anything, just let me know and I can cut it out.
No. I mean, honestly, it's a big part of the reason. So I do a podcast called 4Kids Flashback, and this is a big part of the reason why, because I get asked these questions all the time, and I was like, I want to get to the bottom of the answers, and I didn't have the answers. So now by interviewing all these people, there are some varying versions of stories, but we're trying to get as close to the truth as we can.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll get to the bottom of it one day.
One day.
So let's see. So speaking of like Pokemon, when I mentioned Phanpy being voiced by Casey Rogers, you also shared quite a few mons with her, like during the 4Kids days. Like I just wrote it down, like Bellsprout, Clefairy, Hoppip, Smoochum, Shroomish. Let me hear your Bellsprout just so I can, if you remember.
See, I don't think. I would never claim credit for Bellsprout. Like, I think, again, that might have been one I filled in for, because I wouldn't put those on my list. Like, those are Casey's roles. She owns those roles. Bellsprout. I don't even remember what Bellsprout sounds like, because, again, it would have been such a minor. Hoppip I remember doing again, but I wouldn't have laid claim to it. And I mean, not that I don't want you to air this, but like, like she has ownership over those. So if I was doing it, I was doing an impression of her, and those are her roles. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, and again, not that this is the most important thing in the world, but like, I feel like whoever started it, like, has that kind of ownership, or whoever did it the most, has that ownership.
I totally get that. I was gonna say, do you have any particular memories working with Casey Rogers? I bring this up just because I think
we never.
Fantastic.
I really liked her, and I would see her in the hallways, but we never recorded together because, that just wasn't how it worked back then. Unfortunately, that would have been so much fun. She's super, super talented.
Oh, definitely. Few more Pokemon questions. So for Pokemon Generations, I know that was probably just another audition for you, but it must have been nice to say, oh, hey, that's that Pokemon thing. I was in that once.
Yeah, it was really cool. So Pokemon Generations, again, for people who aren't schooled in this, it was an offshoot of Pokemon. It was more based on the games, and I got to play Cynthia. And I was excited to audition. I was excited to be part of the Pokemon world again. It was weird. It was weird because tonally it's so different. So it was kind of fun to be directed in a different way. Toshi, who worked on who's like a bigwig over at Pokemon Company, was there at the session, which was cool. It was fun to be back in the Pokemon world. Again, it's always strange because I don't think I even knew that Cynthia was a character from the TV show. Like, it wasn't as if we tried to, when they have different entities like that, they don't necessarily want you to be like the other version. They keep them very separate. So I didn't even realize that my friend Emily had played that role. Emily Bauer voices Cynthia in the cartoon. She's awesome. But I was glad I didn't have to do a voice match or anything.
You're on the brink of creating a brand new world!
Stop this at once, Team Galactic! The champion!
So you've come all the way here.
You'd better release those Pokemon immediately!
That's cool. That's very cool. Nice to know you guys are friends, too.
Oh, yeah. She's great.
And then, now, going on from that, there was obviously the big one, coming back to the main series. And I want to know, just, how did you get back on the main series after, like, 15 years? And what was the atmosphere like during that entire process? Take me through the whole thing.
Yeah. So, production of Pokemon, right before the pandemic, moved production to LA. I'm not actually sure of the exact reasoning why, but Lisa Ortiz was directing it, and she was making the move to LA. Lisa and I have been friends since college. We went to college together. We both got into anime separately, so it wasn't as if like we helped each other get in. It was kind of nice that we both found it on our own.
Yeah.
And when production for Pokemon moved to LA, she brought me in to audition. I auditioned for a ton of roles. I got the role of Yamper. And then, I think the early sessions, it was maybe right before the pandemic, so I think I actually went to the studio to do them. And I wish I could remember better, but yes, I believe I did. And, oh yeah, I did. And the way that they do the Pokemon voices now is very, very different than the way we did. Also, like, everything about the production of Pokemon is just feels much more professional than the way we did it. Like, we felt we always were rushed. We definitely screwed up pronunciations. Not that it was haphazard, but like if we're talking early days of season 1, it was crazy pants. By the time we were in season 8, it was like more of a finely tuned machine.
Yeah.
But like, this was, there are actually people from the Pokemon company involved. It just felt like a very, like, a much more serious endeavor than season 1 of the show.
Yeah.
So I was super psyched to be part of it, but I had a bit of a learning curve because stylistically it's different. The Pokemon don't enunciate their names the same way as they used to. They're much more animalistic sounding, which is much harder for me. I am not great at animal noises. I am okay if I have to enunciate Bulbasaur, like, I can do that. But when it's like Yamper, like, Yamper kills my throat because it is so animalistic sounding. And same for the other. I've done like Appleton, I think, on the new show, and Applin maybe. One of the Thwackies I did, and again, it's just much more animal-y. And I mean, Lisa's eye for detail is too good. She's incredible at it. She's like, oh, you missed that tiny little mouth opening. Do it again. And like, she's so good at it. And also, I think like they're getting much clean. I mean, when we started, I think it was VHS tapes and crappy visuals. And I mean, they can just see everything perfectly now. And she's been doing it for so long that her eye is amazing. So
yeah.
So it was a different way of working, I loved it, but it was definitely, because you kind of go in, not that I had an ego about it, but I was like, okay, I know how to do this. And then I was like getting corrected for saying Pokemon wrong so many times. I was like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. So yeah, I was nervous. Like, I don't get nervous that often anymore, and it's fun to be nervous. So
yeah.
Like,
if it makes you feel any better, people tell me I say Pokemon wrong all the time. I have no idea what I...
You just did. Yeah.
That's how I say
It's more of an A sound.
Yeah,
Pokemon.
yeah. Apparently. Yeah. That's what they tell me.
That's what it... I know, but you know what's funny? In the live-action movie, the Detective Pikachu, they said it many different ways. And, like, to my ear, I was, like, going crazy. But I sort of don't mind that it's different because it's people's own interpretation of it, and people around the world might say it differently, and so I had to kind of let go of that.
Yeah, so it's a to quote one of my favorite scenes from The Simpsons, it's a regional dialect.
Sure, let's call it that. Absolutely, call it that.
Yeah, but when it was really interesting when the Pokemon branched out to LA, and I realized, like, wait a minute, a bunch of people who are in LA can come back to the show and either keep roles that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to keep, or get new ones, and in a few cases reprise some old roles. And Journeys just so happened to be Ash's last big hurrah, and a bunch of old characters got to come back. And then I saw Ritchie, and I was like, dang it, he didn't speak.
He didn't speak. I was waiting. Like, so Ritchie was, for those of you who understandably have forgotten, I don't remember what season he was in, but he was a rival of Ash's who had a really cool story arc to me, I thought, because it was a really neat lesson, like, to learn how to compete with your friends. And apparently it made some kids cry when Ash lost at the end of that.
Yeah.
But everyone thought Ritchie would be back in that last season, and I was waiting for him, and instead they just, like, gave him a little cameo where he's in a crowd scene.
I know. They did that with a bunch of characters. Like, oh, come on. He couldn't even make him speak. And, like... Yeah, and thinking about it now, Ritchie showed up last in 2006, so you're probably right about that whole Phanpy debacle. So
yeah, because that was probably the last season.
That was. What else was there? Yeah, because speaking of other characters that I was so happy to get to speak so happy that I saw speak again. Tracy was another character, because here's another nerdy thing. Yeah, Tracy was originally voiced by the great Ted Lewis, of course.
Yes.
And after the voice switch, he was voiced by another actor named Craig Blair, who took over for him, Tracy and Giovanni. Tracy only spoke one time after the voice switch, and then Ted Lewis came back to the show as Giovanni. And then I was like, for years, before 2023, I was like, okay, if Ted Lewis came back as Giovanni, that means he can come back as Tracy.
Yep.
And for 17 years, I was waiting for Tracy to say something. But every time Tracy showed up, he was either in the background or was mentioned. He didn't say a word. And I started getting really upset because during the final stretch of Journeys, Tracy showed up watching all of Ash's battles, but he was like silent throughout it.
Oh,
and then,
man.
Yeah. And then watching the Japanese version of the final episode, Tracy talks and I'm like, this is the big moment. This is the big moment.
Ted.
And then when I watch it in English a couple months later, I hear, "Oh, hey Ash, it's great to see." That's like 17 years.
It was Ted, though, right? They got
it was Ted
yeah,
Lewis.
Yeah,
it was Ted Lewis. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like my theory from when I was like 11 years old, and I waited 17 years. I was like, "That's crazy.
Tracy,
That's crazy."
sketch it.
I know. Oh man. But it sucks that Ritchie didn't get to speak, because I thought Ritchie was pretty interesting when they did stuff with him.
Yeah, I liked it. I like that maybe like they're, well, again, this is just like me fantasizing, but I liked that, like, obviously Ash had learned so much since that encounter with, well, and not his encounter with everybody, but his encounter with Ritchie, which was tough. But again, there's too many, when you're talking about 25 whatever or 26 seasons, I think, there's just too many characters to bring back.
Yeah, I know. This is where it's like, we have to pick our battles wisely here. What are we going to do with this and this? We only have like a few weeks to do this. So I understand on the production side of them, like, I really wish we could do more with this and this, but, you know, we'll just throw him a bone. Here's Ritchie in the background for all you guys who remember that.
A little Easter egg for you guys watching. Yeah.
Yeah. But, okay, here's another question. Now we're into non-Pokemon questions, if you can believe it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But does anyone ever ask about Fololo and Falala on Kirby right back at you?
Sometimes, not often, but yeah, I played Fololo and Falala. I found out recently though that I think they did some pitching on my voice for those, which I didn't even realize.
Fololo and I never split up. Yeah, we're a team like peanut butter and jelly.
Well, today just make like you're all in water. And that there's an order.
We answer to Sir Ibram, Your Majesty. Yes, and to Lady Like, too.
You do as I say and split up, or both of you is out of here.
But when that didn't happen often, and I should go back and watch because I want to kind of figure out what they did and why they didn't just ask me to do it differently. But yeah, people don't ask about that often. I mean, listen, they're bigger characters on Kirby that deserve more attention than those two. So, but yeah, that was directed by Andrew Rannells, who we just interviewed for our podcast, and he was a really, really fun director to work with. I mean, he's just silly. Like, we just had a good time.
I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to hear it because he's Andrew, man. He hasn't. I love that he's still the core of, you know, the friend I remember. So
that's nice.
Yeah. So, but Kirby was fun. But again, I didn't do a ton on that show. So
yeah,
you know.
Now, speaking of, like, when you say they're not very important, I have like a little. Since no one has spoken to you about Fololo and Falala, I did some research. And Fololo and Falala actually predate Kirby, if you can believe it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where were they from?
Okay.
Well, they were called Lolo. Well, in Japanese, they're Lololo and La La La.
In the games, they're called Lololo and La La La, but they are actually based on another pair of characters called Lolo and La La from a series called Eggerland, which was made by the same guys who made Kirby. And that series came out in 1985. And Kirby came out in 1992, and the last Eggerland game came out in 2000, but Lololo and La 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 continue to show up in Kirby games today. So
really?
that's kind of interesting.
Do they talk?
They sort of talk. There's sometimes
They probably make noises, right?
I think so. Like, there's no, like, spoken dialogue in the Kirby games for the most part. So if there's any talking, it's usually probably just in text. And they're usually, like, bosses in Kirby.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they're more antagonistic, but they still look cute as ever.
I had no idea. Well, I was bummed because when I was in Japan, there were I saw so much Kirby merchandise there, and I could not find any Fololo Falala merch when I was there. But I'm sure if I look online, I'll find some. But yeah, not like the most important characters, and I'll live.
It's still an interesting, like, they're almost 40 years old. Like, they'll be 40 next year, if you can believe that.
Wow. They've aged very well.
Mm-hmm.
They look exactly the same. They must have had a lot of work done.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Fololo definitely has Botox.
Oh,
No,
definitely. Why not? Who's to say?
Yeah, I heard Falala is on Ozempic, and no, I am joking. No one write that down. Okay.
I don't even know what that is. Should I know what that is?
It's a weight loss drug that's apparently very popular in Hollywood. I see it written about very often. So.
That's the
It's
stuff
in all
you
the
learn.
tabloids.
It's the stuff you learn when you move out to LA.
That's true.
So, next question. Jungle Emperor Leo. You remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything notable that you can recall about that? I'll just say that many people see that as a Lion King ripoff, but long story short, it is not.
Lion King, Jungle Emperor Leo came first, correct?
Okay, so Kimba, let's call it...
Kimba the White Lion.
Kimba the White Lion came out in, like, what, the 50s and 60s? But Jungle Emperor Leo, that specific movie that you guys did, came out in 1997, 3 years after The Lion King.
Okay, then my timeline's way off.
That's okay. It's very confusing, this whole Kimba stuff, but yeah.
Because Jungle Emperor Leo is really based on Kimba, so they're both really based on Kimba, right? Is that the deal?
If anybody is no one is ripping anybody off. People like to say that Lion King ripped off Kimba the White Lion, but if you actually go into both series, they are both very, very different. Like, they do not touch the same stuff.
So I'm trying to remember anything about this. I remember enjoying it. I remember dubbing it NYAV Post.
Yeah.
Michael Sinter-Nicholas's company, and I still have a cell from it that he gave me, which is so cool.
Ooh.
And again, it was like fun to have a lot to do because a lot of my roles, like, I would jump in and out for, like I wasn't the lead. So it was fun to have a juicier role and more to say and do.
Yeah.
I wish I remembered details. I should probably watch it at some point.
Yeah,
But yeah, and I loved working at that studio, so it was fun.
Coco, what is it? Tell me, come on!
Well, if I remember correctly, it's man-made. This contraption was made to let humans fly.
You mean man can fly in that thing? Isn't it too big? Looney, don't! Come on, it's fine!
Don't worry, it's not alive. It can't attack you.
Yeah, it's co-directed by, like you said, Michael Sinter-Nicholas, Dan Green as well. But I saw the movie, and, like, everybody does a great job in there. Let's see, I spoke to David Wills. He did, like, the bird character. He was good in that. It's a very confusing movie that can't pick a lane, but yeah, it does look beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, when you watch it, you'll understand where it's like, if this movie picked a lane, it would be pretty great. But
that's a bummer.
Yeah,
okay.
it's still fine on its own. It's just doesn't know where to go.
Okay.
But, yeah, good stuff though, from all the performances and the animation and blah blah blah. But onto something. So my brother, he got me into Hunter x Hunter after a very long time, and we decided to watch the dub because he watched it subbed, and I wanted to see what the dub would be like.
Yeah,
and I wanted to say that your performance as Bisky, she was a ray of sunshine in an arc that was totally confusing to me.
It was confusing to me too, a little bit. Well, no, I mean, listen, again, because we're not seeing the full show, everything's confusing to me. So it's not specifically Hunter x Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
I just live in a state of confusion. I loved playing Biscuit. I loved every minute of that.
It shows.
I don't even know what else to say about it. Except that what it reminded me of was working back in the day on Slayers. Something about the tone of it, the classic anime feel of it. and Bisky herself reminded me of Anna in Shaman King. So I found a lot of parallels between those two characters.
I'd really like to join you if you don't mind.
No way. Sorry.
But may I ask why not?
You'd slow us down.
How dare you speak to me that way, you little brat! I could take you out with one hand tied behind my back if I wanted to. That does it. I was only planning to mess with them for a little while, but now I'm going to completely ruin their lives. Hey, hold it right there! I mean, please? I'll try really hard not to get in your way. I promise.
I don't get overly concerned if the voices sound too similar because so much time has passed, and at that point I didn't know I was going to go back to Shaman King. But also because with Bisky I got to do the lower pitched voice as well, so that was super fun. And I didn't know that transformation was coming up. I had no idea that was going to happen, so that was a fun surprise.
Yeah, I mean, same for me. Was that pitched, or did you really try to just like bulk up your voice?
I lowered it, and then I believe they definitely put like an echo or a vibration on it. I don't remember if they pitched it.
Yeah.
But what's funny about that, and I've told this story before, so sorry if I'm boring anyone.
Nah.
But usually what they do is when we record a role, they keep a reference file at the studio. So like if I hadn't played Bisky in a few months, they'd be like, okay, here's your voice reference. Now, the second time that she did the transformation, for some reason, just, this happens, they didn't have a voice reference for it. So we're like, shoot, what did we do for that? Because I couldn't remember exactly how low I pitched or whatever it was. And I was like, wait, someone just posted this on Twitter and tagged me in it. So I went to Twitter, I played the transformation clip to the engineer and the director, and they're like, great. Now we'll record it now. You know what it sounds like, and we'll have a new voice reference for you. But I always have to thank people on Twitter and stuff who post that and tag us in it, because you never know when that might come in handy.
Oh, are you still alive? I'm impressed.
Why would you hide your power if you're that strong?
2 reasons. First, never show your hand. And second, I absolutely despise my appearance. I'm too buff and I hate it.
In that sense, social media is pretty good.
In that sense.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fair.
Pros and cons to everything. But onto a live action role. Now, this was a bit role, but I want
oh no.
It was cool. No, it's nothing bad. But
okay.
I remember Everybody Hates Chris has to be one of my favorite shows.
Oh, yeah.
And you were in an episode as just, a little a waitress. It was a bit role, but it was like, oh my gosh.
I was in 2 episodes. It's so funny. I played a hotel attendant in 1 episode.
Yeah.
And then a waitress in another episode. I had a couple lines.
Yeah.
I mean, super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought that was cool.
Yeah,
I'm like, whoa. There she is.
Yeah, listen, that was pretty soon after not long after I moved to LA. I love being on a set. I love working with other actors. And that, the young actors on that show were so good. And I had my scenes, and I am going to forget his name, which is terrible, but with the lead on the show, and he's awesome. And he's on Abbott Elementary now. He's so good.
Yeah. Tyler James
yeah,
Williams.
And he was, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, great crew, great cast. Yeah, very, very lucky.
Yeah,
to
I'd say
have
so.
gotten to work on that twice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So on to other stuff. I know about, full disclosure, I'm Canadian. So I know about Cartoon Fridays, but that never aired up in my neck of the woods because we didn't have Cartoon.
It didn't?
Nope, we didn't have Cartoon Network up here until like 2012, and even then, it's our own Cartoon Network. It's not the American feed.
I had no idea you guys didn't get it there. That's
Nope.
fascinating.
We have like our various
no
own
idea.
equivalents where it's like, this is the closest thing to a Cartoon Network we have, and maybe some other things sprinkled in from other networks, and it was basically like Teletoon, it was called. But now we have Cartoon Network, like Canada, as our own thing. Long story short, but what else? I actually had a neighbor in when I was younger. She had a satellite. I went to her house one day. And
that's what I was going to ask you, because I've met Canadians who have seen it, so they had satellite dishes.
She had a satellite dish that got Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and it blew my mind because I was like, how are you getting all this stuff? And later I found out it's basically illegal what they were doing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, that's what I've heard. Like, because I've met people in Canada who had seen it, and I was like, well, then how did they get it? But they illegally were watching shows from the U.S.
Yeah, some
obviously.
CD satellite or something. We got things like Fox and the WB easily, like with regular satellite, but those big channels were not available to us. But being the nerd that I am, I know about Cartoon Fridays, and I know you guys interviewed some folks on that show that were pretty big, but is there any interview in particular you can recall that had you like geeking out the most?
Oh my God, so many. I mean, well, Johnny Depp, when I mean, he's a controversial person now, but when I first shook his hand, he looked down at my feet and said, "Blue toes, well done." Because I always would wear blue toenail polish. Robin Williams, I mean, honestly, the biggest for me was Robin Williams.
Yeah,
that was
course.
A dream come true. Yeah, that blew my mind. I couldn't believe I got to talk to him. We got to shoot an episode at Skywalker Ranch. I mean, talk about geeking out.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see Clone Wars, I believe, at their theater at Skywalker Ranch, which had just the most. It had a sound system at every seat. It was the most amazing sound quality I've ever heard in my life. And we got to talk to George Lucas, and I couldn't have been luckier.
Yeah.
To have that job. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Even as like a non-Star Wars guy, I'd still kill to do that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a diehard Star Wars person either. Compared to I like it, but compared to the real fans, I'm nothing. But just to meet George Lucas at his home, basically, was so cool.
Yeah, just style on all your friends. It's like, hey, you think?
My biggest regret is not buying more at the Skywalker Ranch gift shop.
Yeah. How much was it? Was it expensive?
I honestly don't remember, but I bought a couple things, and now in retrospect, I'm like, I wish I got like 7 hats. I don't know. No.
Well, you got something. Something's better than nothing.
Yeah. Yes.
Now let's see. Back to the voiceover roles. I noticed you were in Scooby-Doo Stage Fright. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. I just had a few lines in that.
Okay. I was going to ask.
Nothing to write home about. Yeah. It was fun.
Did you record with the rest of the cast, or was it just a solo affair?
Just me. Yeah, I know, such a bummer.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like Frank Welker and all those guys. Nah, no, that's okay.
I wish. I wish. Yeah.
So let's see. Another question. Which character speaks to you the most, or whom do you relate to / feel the most connection to?
Bulbasaur. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
No, I'm just joking. Like I said before, like the characters like Bisky and Anna and Hunter x Hunter, trying to think of other good examples of that. Even Phileas Slayers, Jujutsu Kaisen, I play 2 roles that like are kind of different. I love the female characters who have like a kick-ass side and a girly side, like where you see both.
Yeah.
Where like, Bisky and Anna are tough, but it all comes from love, and you get to see that side of it, like you understand why they're the way they are.
Yeah.
But I love when they're written in a multidimensional way, like that. Like I love that Bisky can, is into getting her massages and then can go kick ass.
Yeah, definitely. So,
and I hope I'm like that. So I say I relate to that, but I hope I'm like that.
I'd say you are. I've been
and
listening.
not that I can kick ass, but I mean, emotionally kick ass. No.
Yeah, you do pretty good with, your performances and stuff. I'd say that is pretty good.
Thank you.
Now, is there a go-to celebrity / fictional character impression that you do either for work or just like for play purposes, or like what is your favorite person or character to impersonate just in your free time or whatever?
You know what? I am not a good impressionist. There are people, like I admire people. We were talking about Oliver Wyman just before. He can do a Christopher Walken that blows you away.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So I cannot do impressions. Oh my God. It is a dream of mine to do them, but I stink at them. My favorite, if I'm going to do like a voice, I like to imitate those girls who have what we call vocal fry, where everything sounds like that.
Oh, like that, of course. Yeah, that's so much fun.
I could do that all day.
Oh, of course. Look at her. She thinks she's so great.
So yeah, like if I'm gonna go into a voice just to be dumb, but I try not to do that in my real life. You know, because I don't know.
Even if there's like a bad impression, because I do like a bad Jerry Seinfeld and it cracks me up. That's my
It cracks you crack yourself up, yeah.
What is the deal with all this blah blah blah? Like, it's terrible.
Right. I mean, I'll go into that. Like, have you seen the peanuts on airplanes? Yeah. I mean, I guess I would, like, or I'll just do like a Larry David, like pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I'll say lines, but I don't think. The problem is I'm surrounded by so many friends who are so good at it that I probably don't attempt it because they would make fun of me. I'm trying to think. It's more that I'll do an accent or something than an actual. Because I just, it's such an insecurity of mine that I cannot do impressions. So I think that's probably why I stay away from it, because I'm like, damn it, I wish I could do it for real.
But that's what I always hear from actors. Like, even a bad impression can turn out to be a good, like, thing. It's like, this character that I've heard so many things where people are like, oh, this character that I play, that is my bad impression of my friend's good impression of this actor.
That's a great point. Yes, to find a new voice, that's a different thing. Like, if I'm playing around with something, like, you know, like a Rosie Perez, and she, you know, it's like, it doesn't really sound like her, but it's like, it's up there somewhere, and it's, you know, around there. So it's like, my bad version of that will be my New York accent, or, you know, things like that.
Yeah. Not bad, though. Let's see. Now, is there a role that you haven't done yet that you think would be super awesome to do? Like, is there anything on your VO bucket list or general acting bucket list?
I mean, listen, I think we all want to be a Disney princess or a Marvel superhero. Yeah, like I want, hopefully at some point I'll get to do something like that. Because it's fun, you know, and it's like those are those classic character types that are super fun to play because they have that classicness about them, but then you find the nuance in each of them.
Yeah.
So maybe one day.
I think you got a pretty good shot at it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We might have gone over this a little earlier, but is there a role that people don't know of yours that you'd like them to check out, where you're like, why aren't people talking about this thing I did or this or that?
You know, it's not so much roles. There's sometimes just shows that go under the radar that, you know, even the new version of Shaman King, not that many people saw it. I don't feel like it was that publicized that much. A show called Generator Rex that I loved working on. That just, if people watched it, it just didn't last as long as we hoped. You know, Fighting Foodons, I had a blast working on. What's a weird show.
What's in a Foodon? Let's take a look. This is Hot Dog on It, the fastest bun in the East. He's made from one hot dog, lots of ketchup, mustard, and relish, and a little bit of charm. Mix it all together, and you've got yourself a prize-winning Foodon.
I never get asked about Fighting Foodons.
You don't?
For good reason. I mean, it's okay that I know, but yeah, like stuff like that. That it's more the shows themselves, or like. Recently, a couple years ago, I worked on a show called Dino Girl Galco. Yeah, I think I'm saying it right. That's on Netflix, and it's more of a little kid show, but again, it's an anime that just didn't get out there. Like, so the other day I showed it to my 4-year-old cousin because I was like, I want to see how a kid reacts to it, and he really liked it, and I was like, oh, such a bummer that, you know, another one I worked on was of one of the Saint Seiyas that came out, and Yuzuriha, I think was my name on that. That was another show we worked really hard on, but that version of it just wasn't out there. And I remember having a really good time with that character. So I wish more people had seen that.
Well, for people listening at home, well, that's your homework.
That's your new homework.
Some of that
I
stuff
wish I
out.
knew which it's probably called Saint Seiya blah 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 blah, like some other thing underneath. But I'm not remembering.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out after this.
It's okay. Yeah.
Now, getting on to, let's see. So we talked about the podcast. We've alluded to it here and there, but yeah, I've been listening to 4Kids Flashback with you and Steve Yurko. You guys are doing great work. I've even called in a couple of times.
Yeah, I know you have.
Yeah. I apologize for nothing.
Don't. No. Don't. No, it's great. We have, so what he's talking about is as part of the 4Kids Flashback podcast, we have some side episodes called our talkback episodes, where people can leave a message at speakpipe.com/4kidsflashback. And Darren Dunstan and I replied, listen to the messages and reply, and it's been really nice to just kind of hear from you guys who are listening. So thank you.
Yeah, it is really cool. But I wanted to know, let's see, what has been the most eye-opening thing for you and Steve on the podcast, and what does the timeline look like for the future?
Well, because I am so organized and anal, we have episodes banked until at least 4 or 5 months ahead.
Wow.
So all of the upcoming guests are on our website at 4kidsflashback.com. I just go to, if you click on guests, you can see who is coming up. We're what I'm excited about, and there have been surprises, like just figuring out mysteries, like who voiced this and who voiced that. I think some of the shocking things are how much we don't know. Like, we can't figure out why certain episodes never aired. There's so many One Piece questions that we just cannot get to the bottom of. And maybe it's for the best, I don't know. But there are whole storylines cut, and we can't figure out who made those decisions. But the fun stuff has really been talking to people in different departments, like the licensing department, because I never interacted with those people, and hearing about how the products got made, and the toothpaste, and the, the random things that they made. Talking to people who are kind of not working for 4Kids, but worked at other places. Like, we're talking to people from the WB who are on that side of it.
Ooh, yeah.
Talking to people from Taj Productions. It's sort of surprising, because sometimes right before the interview I panic, and I'm like, do I have enough to ask this person? and suddenly an hour goes by, and I was like, oh, that was easy. Even our interview with Oliver took all these, because the truth is the actors remember the least of anybody, because we were not there every day.
Yeah.
So for us, it was another job, and we remember certain moments, but it's the staff that really knows the details. So with the actor interviews, we're taking these crazy turns, and Oliver had all these great stories that had absolutely nothing to do with 4Kids, but I think people might enjoy listening to.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So speaking of, is there, how long, I mentioned a timeline earlier, but how long do you think you guys will do it, or do you guys think you'll just do it for as long as you can?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think we'll know when it reaches a natural ending, when most of the questions are answered. The truth is there's only a handful of actors left to interview, because yes, I could talk to someone who did a couple lines on a show, but I don't know that that's going to make, and I feel bad, because there are people that I know want to be part of it. I'm going to include everyone I possibly can, who makes sense to have on. And I think until I've at least spoken to someone from every department, because I think part of this is it's about the offices and the business of 4Kids. So we want to understand all the different facets of the company. There's a few experts I'd like to make sure I have on before we finish the show. And I don't want to overstay our welcome. So I'm hoping that we kind of just instinctively know when it's hit its end.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it will morph into something else. I don't know yet. But fingers crossed that we don't, run it into the ground and bore you guys.
I don't think you will, because I think you guys have gotten better and better as time goes on. I love your little, the stuff you do before and after the episode, where you and Steve just talk about random nonsense. I think that's really great.
Thank you. We never know if people want to hear that, so thank you for saying that.
I love that.
I mean,
stuff.
I look forward to seeing Steve all the time now. At the beginning, we were just kind of getting our sea legs, and we have an episode that just aired that we recorded early on, and listening back to it, I was like, ooh, we were figuring this out, you know? So it's, no different than like early Pokemon episodes where we say all the names wrong. It's like,
of course,
everything has a learning curve.
How did you guys meet, if you haven't said this already?
Oh, yeah. So when I decided I wanted to make the show, I reached out to Maji Media, which is the production company we do this with. And I was like, hey, I saw that they had a One Piece podcast and some other anime-related podcasts. And I just wrote an email like, hey, I want to do this show. I don't want to do it alone. Is this something you'd be into? And they wrote back, and I had a meeting with Zach, who it's his company. Yeah. And I said, I want to co-host. I said, I don't think I'm able to do this by myself. And he said, oh, I got the guy. Don't worry. Yeah. It was that easy. And I was like, well, do I get a say in this? Because I was like, what if I hate him? And luckily I didn't. I mean, honestly, I was so we had, I think the three of us had a Zoom meeting or something. And I was like, okay, we'll work well together. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah.
It was lucky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, well, and we should say Steve comes at this. I wanted someone who knew the shows and grew up watching the shows. And Steve is that, but also more because he grew up hating certain things, which I love that aspect of it, and loving certain things. But especially One Piece. He's a One Piece encyclopedia. But also because he's a professional storyboard artist who works in this industry and knows all the work it takes to get a show made and the labor of love that so many of these things are. So he comes at it as a professional who was maybe a disgruntled teenager. Like, there's a lot of reasons why he's a perfect co-host for this.
Mm-hmm. The gap in, as a Viva Pinata fan, though, the gap in Viva Pinata is frustrating for me. But
yeah,
I'm sure.
What do you want to hear? Yeah, what do you want to know about Viva Pinata?
Oh, I mean, no, I mean, I know Viva Pinata, like.
The fact that we're not talking about it a lot. Yeah, I know. It's funny. Like, even with Ollie, I think we spoke a little bit, but it's not a show that people have major recollections of. In our next Speak Pipe episode, we do talk a little bit more about it. There is something, I forgot how it came up. But please, again, if you have any specific questions about it, send them in and let us. We are so receptive to this kind of stuff. So when you sense a gap in the show and you're like, you guys never talk about blah, let us know. During, an episode we just recorded, I was like, wow, you know what, Steve? We've never talked about Tai Chi Chasers.
Interesting. Oh, yeah, because there's a guy.
Or Go-Go Riki. Yeah.
There's a guy I spoke to. I don't know if you know the name David Wills, but he's a cool guy, and he was there from 4Kids, like from, let's say, the early 2000s right up to the bitter end, and we talked about. He was on Tai Chi Chasers, Chaotic, Viva Pinata. He was one of the main characters, Dinosaur King. He would probably know quite a bit about some of the later stuff that you guys don't know. So I would suggest talking to him.
He is on our list for sure.
Cool.
So what we do is we alternate every week between an actor and a person on behind the scenes. So. And we tried to go somewhat chronologically. So David, like you said, is kind of farther down the list because chronologically he was in a lot of those later shows. Yeah. So, and then I feel so bad because I hope these people, not that they're like so aware of our show, but I hope they know that I am going to annoy them at some point. And
that's okay. Of all the people to annoy them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, but again, I just don't want anyone to be offended that we haven't reached out yet. So we will.
That's good. That's good. Now, we're down to the final few questions here. Like, you were just talking about, like, oh, I'm worried. Do I have enough to say? But, yeah, I was in the same position where it's like, oh, man, do I have enough? Is it too much? Is it too little? Is it interesting?
You're doing great.
Thank you. So, let's see. Interesting question. What is your favorite pizza when you were in New York? And or what is your favorite food?
Okay, I'm not answering this because... You asked us this on our Speak Pipe episode, and it is going to air.
What did I say?
Was that you?
No, that wasn't me.
Wait, that wasn't your question?
No.
We answered this on our Speak Pipe episode.
I didn't ask
about
pizza.
So now you all have to listen to... Wait, I have to... That's hilarious. Let me see who it was.
Okay.
That is so funny that you just said that. But we did get asked that question on the recent... I won't give anything away, but now you all have to go listen to our third Speak Pipe episode to hear the answer for that.
That's not out currently, right?
It'll be out within a week, so
okay,
yeah,
okay,
a week or so. Yeah.
By the time this comes out, it'll be long out. But yeah, so if it's not favorite pizza, so you're gonna answer that later. But what is your favorite food in general?
Well, it's pizza and spaghetti
Together?
Yeah. I mean, in one meal, that's a lot, but sure. Why not? Italian. I mean, it's always Italian. That's my go-to.
Yeah, Italian's pretty good. Let's see. Now, is there any questions that you have for me? No pressure, if anything comes to mind. Like, aside from, who the heck are you?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think you're very good at this. You'd be, amazed at sometimes how awkward these interviews can be. So I'm impressed with your interviewing skills.
Oh, thank you.
Do you feel like a detective when you do these interviews? Like you're solving mysteries and like getting answers to questions?
Absolutely. After a while, like I've been doing interviews with people for, I want to say almost 6 years now. And it is just interesting. Like, after a while, I wanted to ask more interesting questions aside from the usual, like, what do you think about Mokuba? Or blah, blah, blah. Or can you do this? And yeah, I found some really interesting stuff. And it's always fun to just, get to speak with people, make connections. Sometimes these people become friends later on.
Yeah.
Like a guy I interviewed, he did a lot of cartoons up in Canada, and after the interview, like, we've become pretty good buddies, and he compared me to, do you know a person named Brian Linehan at all?
The name is very familiar.
He was a Canadian interviewer who like spoke to some of the greats like Robin Williams and Steven Spielberg and blah blah blah, and the guy I spoke to, his name is Steve Schneer, and he compared me to that guy, where it's like he was doing all this stuff.
That's very
and I was
nice.
Like, wow. So that's the kind of thing
that is
where
a great compliment.
Yeah, I just want to keep doing that and see what I can do, who I can meet, who I can, get acquainted with, and just spread all this information that I just want to get all the interesting stuff out there that nobody else is talking about that is important. And sometimes, like, I like to call myself, like, what's the word? Politely persistent. That's the term, something like that. Where if there's a specific person that I really want to talk to, or it's like maybe it's not the best time, I will like check in another few months or so. But I'm persistent when it comes to like I really want to get to speak to this person.
That's so interesting because you feel like a nag. Like I had to send some follow-up emails for the podcast recently, and I was like, hey, if just checking if you're interested, and then I feel so annoying. But I'm like, it's fine if you're not, just let me know so I can stop annoying you. Yeah. Like, I'd rather someone decline and tell me they don't want to do it than me just keep harassing them.
I'm still waiting on an interview from like 3 years ago that I'm still waiting for the perfect time to do. And like, I might not even put this in the final bit, but I want to speak to, Carter Cathcart, but he's been going through some stuff.
I know.
But hopefully, like, he's getting better, and maybe.
I feel exactly the same way. That's I'm waiting to write to him until I know he's doing better.
Yeah,
but it's exactly the same thing. Yeah, because and again, like, I get asked, like, why haven't you interviewed so and so, and like, I have there's two people who are dealing with ill family members, and there's people like that it's like, I'm not going to share their information, but yes, of course I reached out to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, and I'll get like kind of angry responses like, why haven't you spoken to blah? I'm so surprised you didn't ask them.
They
and I'm like,
return my calls.
Well, it's like, and it's not that I haven't asked
too.
them. Some of them really, like, a bunch of people said, I hate doing interviews. They make me really nervous. So I'm not going to push them, but I'm also not going to share what they said to me on the air. But then I just look like a jerk for not inviting. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
It's just kind of the tightrope walk.
Yeah. But, I think we're both doing pretty good stuff. It makes me feel good that when you said, like, yeah, I send follow-up emails, like, oh, thank God. I'm not the only crazy one here. I think that'll pretty much be it then. So I just want to say thank you so much for getting to speak with me today. And,
thank you.
For everybody
was fun.
Yeah, everybody who is listening, make sure to check out Tara's stuff. And it's really good. And yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. And yeah,
thank you.
I'll just say goodbye to the audience real quick. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you all next time, whenever that may be.